Hey, good afternoon. Scott Luton and Karin Bursa with you here on Supply Chain. Now, welcome to today's live stream. Karin, how are we doing?
We are doing great. It's a great Friday. It's been a really good week, really busy, but good progress on all fronts.
Agreed, agreed. The Braves have rattled off 3 wins in a row.
In a row,
Uh,
yes.
it's been a productive week, but it's also been a week full of common themes. Lots of chatter and conversations and improvements around experiences, whether they're customer experience, supplier experience, user experience, a good old UX. In fact, there's been as much interest, I think, in supply chain as there has been in user experience and the rest of these experiences. So today's show, we're going to dive in deeper in that, aren't we, Corinne?
Yeah, it's a really important topic, Scott. What I like about that focus is it keeps the end user, the consumer of whatever technology you're developing in mind. And how do we make it simple and easy for them to get access to the information they need? And one of the things I love to say on Tech Talk, which is all about digital supply chain,
Right.
is with good insights, we've got the opportunity to replace risky inventory, right, with valuable insights. And this customer experience and tapping in to transform that data is so important. So I can't wait to hear what our guests have to say.
I love that. And by the way, talking about things that are hot and in demand, Tech Talk Digital Supply Chain Podcast has been killing it, Corinne. What's the secret sauce?
Hey, the secret sauce is the Supply Chain Now team. I think we've had some really, really great guests. So kudos to them because they really bring some important perspectives to the market. But the ability to get it out there and get it into the channels and in front of our community members, man, all that credit goes to our Supply Chain Now team.
Well, speaking of great guests, and I agree with you wholeheartedly, by the way, our team is top notch, world class. But great guests usually equal a great show. And today we've got two outstanding business leaders that folks are going to hear about. Zahir, Palanpur, and Stacey Warthen, both with Azul Arc. So stay tuned momentarily. We're going to have Zahir and Stacey join us. But we're going to say hello to a few folks momentarily, Corinne. But I want to share a couple of quick announcements really quick. Does that work for you?
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me what's going on. There's lots of good stuff on the horizon.
Oh, there's a ton. There is a ton. And we're going to start with this webinar coming up on August 18th with our great friends at Quip and Alloy. And it really focuses on Quip's omni-channel journey. And I'll tell you, as Amanda has told me, and as I've learned in doing my homework here, Quip is creating those raving fans that every organization's after. So y'all can learn a lot more by joining us on this webinar, August 18th, 12 noon. The link is in the show notes. And then Corinne, you'll be joining me and Greg and Kevin and Kelly and a slew of other business leaders at Loris Series big event in September, right?
Absolutely. I'm really looking forward to that event. Lots of great insights, industry trends. And of course, Laura will be talking about supply chains to admire and some of the common threads that she sees as she evaluates just hundreds of companies on an annual basis. So lots of good stuff to come.
Agreed. And y'all can learn more about this event at supplychaininsightsglobalsummit.com. Links in the show notes as well. Supply Chain Now is very pleased to be the exclusive host of the virtual version of the conference. So September 7th is when the party starts. Y'all join us. And then finally, if my mouse is working correctly here today, we're really close. So we've been finalizing this big event in December, the 2021 Supply Chain and Procurement Awards, a global event really celebrating all the great news that comes from the year that will be go down in many folks' journal and history as quite a year to get through. We've got a lot to celebrate. So nominations are open for these awards. Registration, I believe, is open, and we're going to be moving into full promotion here in the next few days. So, Corinne, there's always time and good reason to celebrate good news, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, each and every one of you know somebody in the marketplace that you're working with that has done some extraordinary things over the past year. So don't hesitate to nominate them.
Agreed. Supplychainprocurementawards.com is where you get more information. And part of this event, Karin, we're going to be partnering with Hope for Justice, a global nonprofit that goes to attack and eradicate the world of slavery and human trafficking. And all the nomination fees are going to be donated to Hope for Justice, as well as a big chunk of any proceeds from sponsorship and whatnot. So all the more reason to come celebrate good news with us December 8th. Okay, so Karin, that brings us to giving some shout outs to folks that tuned in for today's conversation, right?
All right, let's see who's with us.
Let's see. Srinivas is back from India via LinkedIn. Great to see you here, Srinivas. Let us know how you're doing. Peter Boley, all night and all day, is back with us, old PB.
Hey, Peter, it's good to have you here.
We can't have a live stream with old Peter. We love his sense of humor and his passion for all things supply chain. So great to see you here. Mark Preston, a member of the AME Board of Directors, and a lean guru, continuous improvement guru, is with us via LinkedIn. Great to see you, Mark. I should say, Karin, you mentioned the Supply Chain Now team earlier. Amanda and Jada and Clay and Allie, all behind the scenes helping us with production here today. And our new friend, Austin. So Austin is helping us make today's conversation happen. John Martinez via LinkedIn. I think John is in San Antonio. Wonderful city. So John, great to see you here. Catherine McCleary. Catherine, great to see you via LinkedIn. I think she's from the Kansas City area. Karin, have you ever met Catherine?
I think so. Yeah, I think she's part of the Kansas City fan club.
I know she's a Chiefs fan. I know that about Catherine. But great to see you. I think her organization's had some big news here lately. And then finally, and we can't get to everybody, but hey, keep the comments coming. Big Show Bob Bova is with us via Facebook, doing some big things out there. I think he's in. You like that?
Just the way you between Peter Boley all night, all day. I mean, you've got some really good intros going here.
Well, I spent some time near a copier machine for earlier parts of my career to hone in on my nickname ability. But Bob is a wonderful, always adds a lot to our live stream. So great to see you here, Bob. And Catherine is confirming Kansas City, born and raised.
All right.
We'll see. Okay. So with no further ado, we've got two outstanding guests. Everybody, you're in for a treat as we talk. We dive in more into user experience and digital transformation, why it matters, how our company is accomplishing it. So stay tuned. I want to welcome in Karin, Zahir Palanpur, CEO of Azul Arc, and his colleague, Stacey Warthen, Vice President of Design and Product Management. Hey, good afternoon, Zahir and Stacey. How are we doing?
Good.
Great, thank you.
Great to see you. Enjoyed the pre-show conversation. Enjoyed our direct collaboration in the previous months. And I tell you, what y'all are experts in and what we're going to be talking about today is in demand. Folks are just dying to learn more proven best practices. So are y'all ready to go?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Good deal. So y'all, you can assure us that you ate your Wheaties this morning. Is that right?
Something like that.
I used to share that. We did some supply chain 101 classes with elementary students years ago. And that was one of the questions I would ask them. And finally, the 17th time I asked them, and all of them gave me those blank stares. What are Wheaties? It was recommended to me. I got to update my references. Kids don't eat Wheaties anymore. So good things to keep between the ears. But let's get to know you both a little better. Before we start talking user experience and digital transformation, I want to get to know and share a little bit about each of y'all with our community. Karin, does that sound like a good starting point?
Sounds like a good starting point.
All right. So let's starting with you, Zahir. So you're based, like the rest of us, here in Metro Atlanta. Is that right?
That's correct, yes.
And what I hear, little birdie told me that when you're not out there leading experience building projects and digital transformation, it's all about cooking and squash in the Palanpur household. Is that right?
That's certainly some of the two primary activities that we engage with, absolutely.
And I also hear you're basically a world champion in both. Is that right?
I wouldn't go that far.
All right. Hey, we gotta have fun on the front end of
Scott. Point of clarification: not cooking squash, but cooking And the
Great.
game of squash. Okay,
Right,
I just want to make sure everybody's with us. Okay.
So
my son's, has been working kind of on the side for a few years now in the restaurant industry. He's very passionate about it. He went to school to study computers and then business, but I think that's where he's going to land. So we really enjoy kind of getting together, cooking together. It's a lot of fun. We have some pretty gourmet meals out here.
okay, so I gotta ask you one more question then. What's your go-to dish if you and your family want to impress people with your culinary expertise? What's your go-to?
Well, I recently had some folks over and we did a combination of kind of the East and the West, and I cooked steaks in kind of a Western, traditional steak style, and then we also grilled steaks in kind of a kebab format, and that went down pretty well.
Man,
And we matched them with some, good relevant wines. I have a side little business that
what do you?
that deals with
You want to be
wine.
a guest at his house.
So Zahir, what are you doing tonight? Can I invite myself over?
Sure.
All right. So Zahir, welcome. Glad you're here with us today.
Thank
Stacey,
you.
let's get to know you a little better. So you are recently, you just moved to Richmond, Virginia. Is that right?
Yep.
All right.
A year or so ago.
Okay. All right. So you've had time to kind of, get around, check out the place, the local markets, restaurants, the local scene, right?
Yeah, it's kind of a bad time to move, but it's been a nice transition.
Okay. So as we chatted pre-show too, Jada, part of the production team, one of the fearless production leaders here, also calls Richmond home. What do you, what's been your favorite part about Richmond thus far?
I think it's just exploring different areas. When you move to a new city, it's just finding those little pockets and places and playgrounds and parks that make it feel like home. So yeah, we've just been exploring, and it's been great to find new places.
Love that. And we were also talking pre-show about your family. You have 2 girls that keep you busy. Is that right?
Yeah, 2 little girls. One is 3.5. One is just turned 1. So just, chasing them around all day pretty much when I'm not with Azul Arc.
Love it. So what's final question for you? We love talking about food here. Have their food tastes, what they like, what they hate so far?
Yeah. Well, my littlest one will eat anything. Thank goodness. My oldest is a little pickier, but yeah, they're pretty good. They like everything. We're trying to get them into more spicy foods and expand their palates, but yeah, no, I don't know. They like everything.
We were about to compare and contrast there because we've got 3, and our oldest 2 are both daughters, and my oldest is the pickiest eater, and our middle child just loves. She's very eclectic and loves to also cook. So we'll have to compare notes later on.
Yes.
And as Catherine shares, Zahir, and I'll add Stacey to this, feel free to share recipes. Amanda says steak and wine sounds pretty awesome to me. And John says, Zahir, you said the magic word, steak. So a lot of fans here. Who knows? You may have a cooking show in your future, both of you. Okay. Well,
Just on that note, very quickly, it's funny you'll ask that question. On our website, we have a blog, which is sort of your classic corporate blog that shares information and insights around digital product development and design. But I was actually just on a call yesterday with our team where we're going to kind of switch that around. We're going to have a work and live section. And in the live section, we're just going to be talking about food and good restaurants and, just experiences, because we kind of look at, believe in the whole person. And so, that kind of extends us from just not being all about work, but about living.
I love that. See here. I love that. In fact, we're kindred spirits. We just launched for fun. We just launched a Facebook group called Supply Chain Chow. Just to talk about
that's
food.
Nice. Well, I've got to join that one.
And I also should add this from Catherine. Her kids collectively only like about 7 foods. So man.
Yeah.
All right. So Karin, we could talk.
Let me rope this back in because the food topic is near and dear to Scott's heart. So
are we changing this from user experience to food experience?
No, I want to go. I want to talk about digital transformation, and specifically that user experience or the customer experience. Zahir, talk to me a little bit about why this is so important right now and top of mind, and what you're seeing in the marketplace as far as the ability to drive more value across the organization. Whether we're talking about a user experience, a customer experience, it's just that engagement that happens.
Absolutely. So, when we talk about digital transformation, there's a lot of information and there's a lot happening out there, and we're achieving a lot of the benefits that have been talked about for a long time. So, for example, you have these much larger, more complex engagements around artificial intelligence, the Internet of Things, which of course has a big impact on the supply chain. Now, those are very significant, complex engagements that take a lot of time and resources. But along with that, you also have the opportunity to drive much more focused initiatives around creating digital experiences for your customer, looking at how they interact, observing, kind of how they interact in the real world, and then kind of working from the outside in to develop specific applications and tools that allow them to engage much more significantly with your organization, to create more transparency, and help them be more successful and effective in what they do.
Yeah, absolutely. Zahir, one of the things I think is so important around that is, our typical users have changed dramatically. I mean, we are dealing with a community of digital natives. They have grown up with more power in the palm of their hand than we had 20 years ago or 30 years ago from an enterprise perspective. And they expect to be able to engage in that very kind of quick, let me interpret it, tell me where to go. And your team is really focused in this area to bring those capabilities about. Talk to us just a little bit about how you, Stacey, the team are harnessing those capabilities to change and transform the clients that you serve.
You're absolutely right. I think today, particularly the younger generations, technology is embedded in their experiences versus we learned how to use technology, and COVID has actually just accelerated that path significantly. We work with our clients, typically engaging them first in what we really emphasize is kind of going through a process of discovery, and we have several methods and tools that allow you to engage and understand your user base, and then kind of work backwards in terms of architecting the right solution that addresses those problems that the user might be facing, or the opportunities to effectively engage. And then from there, we start actually designing and building the solution. So that's sort of the approach that we take here. There's a lot of great tools that help you do that. I think Stacey is going to touch on some very specific tools and methods that we can be using to effectively understand that user experience and design the product for that user.
Right. Great. And so Stacey, tell us a little bit about that. So when a client comes to you and says, I need help. Yes, I understand my user experience is not what we want it to be. How do you walk them through that process? What's the tool or the process that you use to kind of help them visualize the possibilities?
Yeah, well, I think, of course, Zahir mentioned the discovery process, and we unwrap that a little bit. At the heart of it, it's really, who are my users? What are the problems that they're facing? What are the goals that we're trying to achieve? And finding that focus for achieving that. So
really quick, Stacey, that what you just shared is so important, and whether it is digital transformation projects or many others, it seems like oftentimes we jump right over that discovery process, and maybe teams don't know what success looks like and what we're after. How critical is that first step?
And just if you don't mind, I'm just going to add to that point. You're absolutely right out there. I mean, we have so many customers that have come to us and said, I know exactly what I want to have built. And it's amazing, as soon as we actually get engaged in the process and through discovery and onwards, so much of those preconceptions that they have change. It's quite remarkable. I mean, it happens every single time.
Yep, exactly. Happens every time. So we basically take you through a process where we help get to the meat, get to the good stuff of talking to your users. So there's a lot of ways that you can engage with users. I think sometimes it feels intimidating, but ultimately it's really just talking to people. Right. So you could have 5 users, talk to them for a half hour each, ask very specific questions, understand their pain points. You can do surveys. You can install software like something called Hotjar, Full Story onto your existing platforms. And it gives you user behavior. So of course, we can walk you through something very specific and do those engagements. And that's getting more out of people and kind of digging deeper. But on the surface, anyone can really do some user research.
So I want to pause there for a second. I want to share a couple of quick comments that we've gotten here from the stream here, starting with Kelly Barner, who hosts our Dial P for Procurement series here at Supply Chain Now. I really appreciate Zahir Palanpur's point about younger generations seeing technology as embedded. It may not be a huge difference, but it is a nuance between their mindset and how those of us with more experience think about the user experience. Excellent, excellent point. Amanda adds, who are my users? What are the problems they're facing? And what are we trying to achieve? Going back to Stacey, how critical that discovery aspect is, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And just one quick example out here. Please. It's like, I have teenage kids. They don't like email. They don't respond to my email. For them, it's all about chat. Some form of chat. And so if you don't kind of think about that, we're not going to be able to engage and interact more effectively. So you've got to be thinking about these different channels on how people communicate and what, their preferred methods are.
That's such a great point. Karin, I don't know if I've shared this with you. We had one of my favorite team members. All of them are my favorites. But years ago, he was using a platform that we use here for the first time. And probably in typical, what I typically do, I over-explain, and I was showing him how to use this platform, and he goes, Scott, time out. Look, I'm a digital native. I can figure this out in 2 minutes. I'm good. And it was that moment of clarity that really belies the point you are both making. And I think the other really valuable lesson learned is, getting, business leaders you're all working with, they may have a solution in their mind, but it may not be the best one for them. And that's where y'all's role in terms of consultative and using your expertise to help them kind of maybe not be so married to that one solution. Y'all see that a lot?
Yeah, definitely. And I wanted to add one point to
please.
What you were saying earlier. I think another just point is context. I think people forget, there's your desktop, there's your phone, there's Alexa, there's all these different ways that you can interact with people and users. And one type of device might not be the right one for the problem that you're trying to solve. So just another thing to keep in mind when we're thinking solution focus.
Mm-hmm. Excellent point. And there are, I think someone's very popular because we're getting lots of emails and texts right this second. But let's talk about, before we move to Zahir and talk about how can business leaders tackle digital transformation, user experience, optimize those experiences. Let's make sure that we really flesh out how organizations, what else are y'all seeing organizations do right just now to enhance these experiences that their users have? What else are y'all seeing out there?
And I'll let Stacey take that question because she's right in the midst of it. I just want to share one example to kind of, that I think leads into this is, in understanding the user as much as possible, if you can rely on observation, that sometimes tends to be the most effective way of understanding how, your user interacts. So some of the tools that she mentioned, like Hotjar, that's more about observation in terms of how they really do stuff versus what they're telling you. So that aspect is so critical. And just a quick example, from the real world, the Heinz ketchup send a few folks to people's houses, and that's not normally easily doable. And that led to the ketchup bottle that was designed kind of upside down, which was a remarkable, the amount of growth that drove, that just that one idea. It was not about changing the ketchup. It was just about changing the packaging so that you could have the ketchup bottle flipped over and get that last bit of ketchup from there. that innovation that came from observation drove so much growth in business for them. So, there's these little ideas, and again, the more you rely on observation, the more effective you'll be. But sorry, Stacey, and we've done some real interesting work with clients, and she can share a few examples.
Yeah, I also think, Stacey, I know you probably have an opinion on this, but I also think taking that kind of mobile first strategy in today's age is really important, especially for enterprise type customers, whether they're working on, enterprise class supply chain applications or some other application in their business, that we need to think about it from being accessed on mobile devices first. And how do we make that navigation quick and easy and intuitive versus the more traditional, very dense screens that we see in a lot of enterprise applications. And that's one thing your team does really well in that design process and quick navigation. So tell us a little more about that.
Yeah, one thing I'll say about mobile is that I think some of the most successful apps out there are extremely focused. Mobile isn't meant to be a lot of different complicated things. That's what the web applications are for. That's what your desktop computer is for. So when we talk about mobile focused in terms of what we're actually building and what the user is actually doing, because you can only do so much on your phone. So just keeping that in mind when you're designing and kind of thinking about what the users really need.
That's so true. Despite our best efforts to do everything and then some, right, on our phones, there are certain limitations, and there's also limitations, in this omni-channel environment. Everyone is not on their phone for every transaction and every interaction, right? So that seems to be, to your last point, Stacey, an important component when you're planning the solution and really planning for the right optimized solution.
Right.
All right. So Zahir, anything else to add about, what you're seeing organizations do before we get into, kind of how can folks do it?
You have, to what Stacey said, kind of mobile applications. So we're seeing, particularly kind of from a supply chain perspective, the ability to equip your sales teams, your front end of the office with mobile devices that allow you to kind of validate inventory out there in the field, to check back and provide quick and easy answers, all tied back into the supply chain. So those very focused type applications that allow your front end to have access there, I think is one significant thing we've seen happen, and we've worked with a lot of companies, to build tools like that for them. Of course, sorry, go ahead.
No, that's good. I'm still thinking ketchup. I'm still thinking the Heinz example is such a good
Going back to food.
Yeah.
Yes. But really, going back again, I think, everyone can relate to ketchup, and everyone can relate to seeing that bottle. And as you talked about earlier, sometimes we can cling to the rules that have gotten us here, right? When that's not what the next solution is all about. And that ketchup bottle is just the perfect example. I want to share this comment from Mark Preston. So Mark is all about, he's a lean guru, continuous improvement, manufacturing leader. He says, value in the eyes of the customer, and different customers have different profiles and value needs. Looking forward to discovering more with you on Monday. Oh, AME, the Lean Sensei assessment. But, Stacey, speak to that point for a minute, because, it's not as if it's just one customer out there and they all like the same exact thing. How do you plan for that diversity of the market?
Yeah, I mean, definitely. There could be many users using one platform, and the ways to manage that, again, obviously understanding what each user profile needs. We have exercises and tools that we can use to get that information, extract it. But then from the design standpoint, implementing design and actions that specifically apply to those users. That's how we ultimately accomplish it. It's kind of that customization for user types, within the platform.
Gotcha.
Stacey, what's the hardest part about launching one of these initiatives? So when your team gets involved and starts leading a client through this process, what's the toughest point? What's the toughest part of getting that underway?
I think it's the hardest thing is for people to refine scope. Most people want to build, get everything in. And I think, you kind of have to prove your hypothesis in a way. You build the first iteration of it, you test it, you get feedback, you do rounds of that, and then you have your product. You have your first starting point, and you use it and you get it out in the market, and then you can keep building. And that's really the approach that we like to take. But I think it is a challenge when you come in, you have a lot of ideas, you have a lot of problems, you have a lot of users, things you want to try and do, and honing in on that maybe single thing or a couple of things that are really big pain points is usually what is the most successful.
Having the discipline to determine what not to include is as important as sort of what you're including, if not sometimes more important. I think the Steve Jobs that said when he was asked about what he was really proud of about kind of the iPhone, he was like, that was one of the things he said it was our team's discipline to say no and not to include certain things into what we designed. Was as important as what we actually came up with and did. So that is definitely an important factor.
I love that.
Zahir, that's a great point, because scope creep is real. I mean, it's real, and it is tempting for all of us. So, I've had the opportunity to work with your team. There's two things that stuck out to me. One is great project management, right? Great at kind of keeping us moving forward. So kudos to the Azul Arc team for that. The second is they were able to bring to the conversation perspective from lots of different types of applications, lots of different user experiences. And that was really valuable to say, they might come back to the table and say, here are 3 or 4 different options. Don't be distracted by the fact that this is a restaurant and you're talking about a business to business environment. It was more the metaphor that was being used. And I think that type of expertise is really valuable in tapping into that user experience and that transformative process. So Stacey, how do you kind of get that information sharing across your team so that they're constantly cross-pollinating and sharing ideas of what's working as you're working with a variety of different customers or different clients?
Yeah, no, that's a really great point. I think sometimes some of the best ideas come from looking across the spectrum, and even if it's not your industry, what are some things that are easy or done really well, and how can I use that and apply it to what I'm doing? I think the main thing there is just keeping an open mind and continuing to explore all different avenues. Exactly what you said. That's right.
Love that. Zahir, also Steve Jobs talked about the immense value of saying no, right? Kind of going to some of the points you both are making, right? You can't have everything, nor should you have everything. You got to say no to some of the bells and whistles, right? To arrive at that truly optimized solution. All right. So I want to share this from Amanda. She says, thinking about different communication channels and their preferred methods of communicating. Again, so important to think about. Serving the customer in the way that's most effective for them is important to consider. Excellent point there. Catherine is a huge fan of Hotjar. I think one of y'all mentioned that earlier for user experience audits on websites. And then one last comment here from Big Show Bob Bova says, Edge architecture is growing so fast now for the optimization of customer experience, but also inside the supply chain with the at the point of work capabilities and speed. Excellent point there, Bob.
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so before we move on, one of the last things we're going to talk about is how can business leaders tackle these types of projects. But it just dawned on me, we need to kind of fill in the gap and make sure folks know what Azul Arc does. So Zahir, let's define that, and then we're going to move to how can folks get to work and create these projects.
Sure. So at Azul Arc, we're passionate about designing and building digital products. So we help our clients through, as we've been talking about the customer experience, kind of going through the discovery process. We then actually design out the solution. So we have a great team of people that do the UX and the UI work. Here we have creative, kind of the creative resources as well. And then we get into actual software development. So we actually design and then build the custom software that our clients are looking to get done. So we build applications for the web, for mobile devices. We do websites as well. And then, we help them. And then, of course, we have a testing team that does, kind of rigorous testing kind of for the back end, and then through deployment. And then, we're big believers in road mapping, which kind of partly addresses the question that, what is it that you want to include and say yes or no to, because we like to sort of look at, like, what is that sort of core initial component that you want to kind of deploy. So we do engage with our clients over the long term and continue to help build and develop, because you learn so much more once you actually deploy the application. So that's sort of in a nutshell what we do as an organization.
I love that. I want to share this comment from John too. John says he feels capturing the voice of the customer during the initial planning phase is key, but more than ever, we need to promote agile systems that can evolve and shift with the least amount of effort. Mm-hmm. Excellent point there, John. Mm-hmm. Amanda, absolutely. Identifying what not to include is as important as knowing what to include. So true, and takes a ton of discipline. Good stuff there. Okay, so let's talk, and Zahir, will stay with you, and then Stacey, whatever you'd like to add to this next question. Business leaders oftentimes can struggle. I love that, but how do I do it? I need that, but how do I do it? So Zahir, how can business leaders get started and create winning and successful initiatives along these lines?
Sure, absolutely. So oftentimes when you're looking at building tools and applications, you are looking for an outside partner to work with you. In our experience, a lot of firms that have inside IT groups normally also are more focused on kind of managing and maintaining enterprise systems. So the first and most important thing is finding that right partner. There's a lot of great tools out there. And, we've got sort of, much like you have Yelp for the food industry, we've got tools, we've got review sites like Clutch. I'm keeping that food analogy going out here. We've got Clutch, we've got Clutch, which is a great source to vet and look at, reviews for the different companies that perform these types of services. I feel it's as important to look at the technical skills as it is to look at the softer skills. I think sometimes that gets missed because you're not delivering a product or widget to the client. You're actually building a collaborative solution with them, and you're going to be working with the team that you choose for, oftentimes very extended periods of time. So it's important to understand sort of the softer side. Are they effective in communicating? What's the culture and personality of that company? Do you align well with that? So those are other aspects or insights that you want to try to get as much as you can up front. And then the other piece, of course, is what we've been talking about is like engaging first in discovery. Too many people want to jump that step and get straight into kind of, okay, I want you to come back to me with a proposal to develop the whole solution. It's a little bit like going to a builder and saying, I want to build a house, but without any architectural plans. You really do need to go through that discovery and kind of at least blueprint to a high level of what is, that architecture that you're creating for the users that you plan to serve. So I think those are two really important steps. The one thing we tell clients too is that if you engage initially in discovery, you actually help solve for the other issue about, can we work together? Because you're kind of starting in a more limited, at a limited level to do that first piece where you're able to get the whole, kind of core architecture together, but you're also learning to see if this is somebody that you can actually work with. I think those are really, two important kind of first steps that you want to address when you're engaging with somebody. Beyond that, we do, get into the agile process, and maybe Stacey can talk more about kind of our process once we engage.
Wonderful, Stacey. What would you add?
Well, I was going to add that just part of our discovery process, just kind of pushing again user experience and why it's so important. We design actual screens as a secondary part of our process. And really the first part is all about those questions. Who are users? What are their goals? Just going back to that. What are we trying to solve? And we talk a lot. We ask a lot of questions. We have work sessions. We engage with you. And I think once we get all of that, then we can start designing. Then we can think about what does it look like? What is the context? But it's just so important to have those conversations up front, like Zahir was saying. And it really does save really cost, scope. We make all those decisions up front, and it helps with the future engagements and development process.
Love that.
And we use a process called object-oriented UX design. So that's just kind of a very specific methodology that we use, and there's information about that on the web. There's a lot of great tools now too for creating wireframes. So just from a practical tool standpoint, there's Figma has now become very popular as a tool that one can use. So audience is looking for specific ideas and tools there. There's a lot of great stuff there. And then, of course, when you get into development, we do follow the agile process, where we're kind of working in typically 2-week increments, where we're delivering, or we have deliverables, user stories that we actually code and build and then deliver to our clients every 2 weeks. So that's a fairly standard industry process that is being followed now. There's also lots of interesting things happening in testing as well.
Sounds like it. And we should say hello, Samuel, tuned in via LinkedIn from Panama. Welcome. John had a great question for really you both, especially Stacey, about do you have any advice to share with capturing the voice of the customer in the initial conversation? But then he says, you just answered my question. So y'all are just that good, Zahir and Stacey.
Awesome.
All right. So, Karin, where do you, after hearing from Stacey and Zahir, and of course collaborating with them, we've seen this firsthand. What comes to your mind in terms of some of the most critical things they've shared here today?
So I think one of the things that's really critical, Zahir was just getting at, and that's along with Stacey talking about the agile process, is to incrementally layer on, if you will, additional capabilities. So confirming a user experience and then diving into a process a little deeper and a little deeper. I think it really helps the client, the customer, come along that journey with you. Right? It doesn't happen in a black box somewhere. It's a very engaging process that I think allows the Azul Arc team the opportunity to validate constantly, ask questions, and verify, are we meeting that customer experience, that user experience need, or do we need to make some changes before we're too deep in this process? So I don't know, Stacey and her team are kind of like counselors in this process too, right? They're asking questions constantly and validating needs and presenting options. So Stacey, you guys do that in a very collaborative way. I don't know what the secret sauce is, but help our listeners understand, why that's so important and maybe the cadence that those touch points occur in.
Yeah, definitely. So I'll give a shout out to Sophia Prater. She's the one who developed object-oriented UX. And that's really the methodology we follow for trying to get this information from our customers and help them create the best possible experience. So that's a series of work sessions, a lot of documentation that we create from that process that gets everyone on the same page, make sure we're hitting the same goals ultimately, throughout the entire process, whether it's with our customer or with our users or with even our development team. And really at the heart of it is, again, the users, but we also talk about mental models. And there's mental models when it comes to the actual UI. What are people familiar with? What are they used to interacting with? Like Instagram or, Facebook feeds. Those are very standard now. We don't need to redesign that, recreate it. But so using some of those things and also when we talk about mental models, we're talking about real world situations and what exists today and how we can build technology based off of that. So we're not trying to recreate an existing idea basically that exists in the real world. We're just trying to transform it and make it work in a phone or on the web. So those are some of the things that we touch on.
Yeah, just on that point, you want to keep the sort of thinking and creative energy focused in the relevant areas. You don't need to redesign the sign up or the login process. People are used to a method. It's like you don't want to redesign a keyboard every time you create a computer, right? Because people are used to a certain method of doing that. So what you want to be creative with is sort of those high impact, meaningful areas that are unique to what you're trying to develop for your user.
Yeah. So here, give us a couple of examples of the types of applications that your team has delivered. So I think that our audience might be surprised at just the wide variety of types of applications that you've been able to help clients with.
Sure. So we built a lot of, I think we talked earlier about kind of building technology that builds business. So one of the things that we love doing is helping entrepreneurial companies build technologies that they built their entire business around. We've created, for a client, kind of like almost like an Airbnb, like internal Airbnb application to manage and maintain their membership. This is in the they own vacation homes all across the Americas. We recently designed something called Smart Studio, which is for which is kind of reinventing the how you manage your fitness studios. That's been a really interesting journey there. Stacey's been extremely involved with that. We've done kind of projects for larger clients where we build customer portals. We've done one for a manufacturing company where we do RF. Where they can, their distributors and dealers can go very quickly, check inventory levels, and then do requests for pricing. So the sales team gets this information, coming to them, and it makes it much easier for the dealers and distributors. We've done, some interesting work for Deutz in terms of finding service parts, including if a certain part is not available. Was there an earlier model of that is available that can be used in instead of it. So we've done a lot of very specific types of applications as well.
So Zahir, that's got to sell like hotcakes, especially in this environment where service parts, everyone's searching high and low for service parts, right? The lead times have quadrupled, and then some. So I bet that's an intriguing opportunity, because if you can find a substitute that it's an inventory somewhere. Who knows, Karin? You might get a dishwasher working earlier than expected.
Right, exactly. Yeah, absolutely.
Love that. So, Karin, you are right. I had no idea the wide range of solutions and industries and sectors and types of problems that Azul Arc have been working hard to address.
Yeah, absolutely. I think they take this skill set, right, of certainly application developers, but this user experience driven approach that can really be applied to solve a multitude of business problems. So I think it's very engaging. They'll help you achieve your goals right out of the gate, and then, as Zahir said, kind of put a plan in place, maybe to roll out additional capabilities or functionality. But I really like the perspective that they bring from different industries to tackling problems, right? So problems in the supply chain space, right, which might be actually visualized very well with a user interface or a user metaphor that's used in a service industry or used in the restaurant business, for example, or a menu option. So be sure to kind of tap into those skills versus coming forward and saying, I want XYZ and it's a box this big and it has these 3 buttons on it, because you might end up with something really exciting and interesting if you open the possibility for additional expertise in the conversation.
Well said.
Just say, Stacey and her team have been doing some really interesting work in looking at a lot of supply chain data and kind of designing how you can make it more easily consumable, because that's sometimes can be the problem. You've got so much information, how do you design it so that it's just so much more easy to consume? And so that's kind of another area that we've done a fair bit of work in.
I love that.
Absolutely. I mean, it is the transformation, right? It's taking these data heavy, and our data is doubling, tripling, quadrupling on a regular basis, right? And transforming that data into actionable insights or activities. And I think that's done through the user experience.
Love that. Okay, can I ask y'all a surprise question here as we start to wrap up today's conversation? Sure. And this is a softball question. Y'all are so focused on experiences, obviously, right? That's a big part of the work, the great work you do, and the solutions that you build. As consumers, right? As customers yourselves, are there any recent experiences or companies that come to mind that y'all think are just it's a model for how the customer user experience should be? Any customer companies come to mind?
Got to think about that one a second.
Well, as you think about it, so Karin, we talk a lot about Chick-fil-A around here, right? It's it stands out, and even during the pandemic, as you've seen almost every single restaurant, how they've adjusted their operations to keep cranking out those chicken sandwiches that the country's addicted to, right? Karin, what about any other companies in your recent experiences that really was real positive for you?
Well, I think Chick-fil-A continues to be a really good example for a couple of things. One, you remember that as vaccines and testing, were underway, that they used the drive-throughs at Chick-fil-A. Like, they came and studied the drive-through process to really accelerate that. So again, you never know where that inspiration is going to come from.
Right.
But my adult sons have that Chick-fil-A app on their phone, right? And yes, they love the chicken sandwich, but the ease of ordering and use, right, back to that user experience, makes it easy for them. And I guess they earn award points in different things as well. But it's taking that, how do we create that stickiness, that ease of use, that our customers or our users want to come back and use the applications that we're putting in place to really drive digital transformation.
Excellent point. And thank you, Kelly. And so I got to put the onus on you, Kelly. Give us a recent experience you've had that really hit it out of the park from a world-class standpoint. Zahir, same question to you. Any recent experiences come to your mind?
Well, I mean, from a digital perspective, I was just going to share that I and keeping with our food team, I love the app called Vivino. Vivino is an app for like that you can kind of scan a bottle of wine. It tells you everything about the wine that you want to know. I can, if I buy wine, I can save it, and so it has a digital cellar. So I know exactly what's in there. So that's a great sort of tool or application that I find myself using all the time because it's so practical and effective.
I love that. All right. So now not only can you cook great food, Zahir, but you have great wine. So everybody's at Zahir's house tonight. So love that.
I think we had a small sort of side passion project with another entrepreneur where we actually had this app called Vino app, which is all about Argentine wines from Argentina.
Man, I love that. Amanda's also heard great things about the Vino app. Kelly Barner says, agree on Chick-fil-A. And now Tim, my 11-year-old, wants to know what show I'm watching since we're discussing Chick-fil-A. I tell you, it is amazing. And Mark Preston, who was on this live stream earlier, he's had the great opportunity to kind of see behind the scenes at Chick-fil-A and rub elbows with their leadership. And it's really amazing. They've got here in the Atlanta area where they're headquartered, they've got a really large facility called, I think it's the Hatch or the Hatchery. I can't remember which one, but they've got a full size drive-through so they could experiment with different aspects and make constant enhancements to how they serve the customer. It's a company that really, beyond the quality of the products, that experience, they've taken it very seriously.
My youngest son actually works, is doing a summer job at Chick-fil-A, so he keeps coming back and he's like, Dad, do you know how many potatoes they sell in a day? It's extraordinary. I mean, they go through like a ton of potatoes, like literally a ton of potatoes every day at the place that he's at. So
it's mind-boggling. You're right. Clay says Apple Store is great customer experience. Mark agrees with Vino. I'm going to check out this Vino app.
Yeah,
it seems like it's all the rage here. Okay. So as much as I hate it, because I think we're scratching the surface on y'all's expertise and your capabilities, we admire the work you do and how you do it, right? As Karin was touched on earlier. But let's make sure folks know how to connect with both of y'all and the Azul Arc team. So Zahir, for you, how can folks connect with you?
I think, you can certainly connect with me on LinkedIn. I have a name that's not very common, so it's easy to find me. We have a website as well. Austin Beveridge is our sales director, so he's a great resource if people want to talk about projects.
Yes.
So there's probably a few different ways.
Wonderful. And we're going to make it really easy. We're going to put your contact information in the show notes. You're one click away for any of the listeners out there. And by the way, Austin Beveridge, the pride of Indiana, new resident here in Atlanta, sharp individual. Stacey, same question for you. How can folks connect with you?
Yeah, same. LinkedIn, through our website. Exactly. And, my name's a little more common, but you should be able to find me.
It is just that easy. Well, Karin, before we swoosh our guests out, any final comments from you while they're here with us?
No, just thanks for sharing some of your expertise with us here today. I think this is a topic that's really important, that user experience, or keeping the end consumer in mind as we're developing new technology or even transforming existing technology. So thanks for the creativity you bring to the conversation, but also the strong process behind that. So I think that helps to keep the projects and initiatives on schedule and getting the feedback that you need in order to leverage that agile process and move forward.
I could have said it better. Very, very well said there, Karin. Well, big thanks. Zahir Palanpur, CEO with Azul Arc, his colleague Stacey Warthen, Vice President Design and Product Management. Thank you to you both. And hey, happy cooking and squash playing and daughter playing throughout the weekend. Thank you both.
Thank you so much.
Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye.
Yes, chasing daughters, I'm sure. 3.5 and 1 years old.
Good times.
Absolutely. All right. So Karin, so much there. And it really, that's a tough conversation to fit into an hour because, we're scraping at the surface of all the work they do and the wide variety of work they do. But inarguably, that user experience, customer experiences, these experience factors have never been as important as they are right now to not just measure, but constantly enhance, right?
Yep. I think you have to have that mindset, Scott, of what you just said. It's a constant evolution. You can't just sit back on your laurels. And when it comes to customer experience, when it's done well, it's just natural. It's easy. It's intuitive. When it's done poorly, it really gets remembered because people are frustrated. And it's complicated, and maybe they don't know the right combination of criteria to select. But good user experience should feel very comfortable to the user in meeting their questions or their needs or their information access. And then you've got to do what you just said. It's got to be an evolution. It's got to continue to evolve as technology evolves, and as your capabilities evolve over time.
Wonderful. Well said. So curveball question for you is what's to come on Tech Talk Digital Supply Chain Podcast? Can you share anything? You got to keep everything under the hood.
Well, I can't name names on everything, but we do have a couple of folks joining that have got some real innovative and new ideas. And then one member of our Supply Chain Now team is actually going to be a guest in an upcoming podcast. So we'll advertise a little more on that as we nail down the details. And then actually next week, Scott, you and I have Transplace in a live stream on Wednesday, August 11th. And we're going to be talking about really their market forecast around freight. And they have done this report and analysis on a regular basis now for a number of years. It's going to be interesting. I really want to invite our community to join in that conversation and tap into some of those insights because I think it'll help you run your business better. Agreed.
But, it's always about the movers and shakers across global industry at Tech Talk, right?
It is. Absolutely.
Just like talking about movers and shakers, Zahir and Stacey, home run guests. Folks, if you want to make some of these crazy times, these crazy challenges, these tough, complex challenges easier, reach out. And their contact information again would be in the show notes. We'll try to make everything as easy as possible. Right, Karin?
We do indeed. User experience.
User experience. Nice. Nicely done. All right. So big thanks to all of y'all that tuned in. Really appreciate all the comments and some of the questions. Loved Zahir and Stacey's expertise that they put on display here today. Check out Azul Arc. Big thanks to my co-host, my fearless co-host, one Karin Bursa. Be sure to check out Tech Talk Digital Supply Chain Podcast wherever you get your podcasts from. Karin, give me one good good thing that you're looking forward to going into the weekend? And then I'll wrap.
I don't know. Between all the talk about food and wine and Chick-fil-A drive-thrus, maybe all three of those are in my future. Let's keep our fingers crossed.
That's a wonderful weekend. All right. So, hey, everybody, wherever you are, have a wonderful weekend. Most importantly, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time right back here at Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.